Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a piece of technology that, whether you know it or not, is probably powering a huge chunk of your digital world, Microsoft Azure. We're going to go from the absolute ground floor of cloud computing all the way up to the really cool cutting-edge stuff with predictive AI. Let's jump right in.
Remember the old days? I mean, maybe you still live in them. The constant hum of servers, the freezing cold AC, and that long, long wait just to get a new project off the ground. The cloud promises something totally different. We're talking speed, flexibility, and basically unlimited power on demand. And that's the huge shift we're going to explore.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what Azure does, we really need to understand why it even exists. Why does it matter so much? Because this isn't just about renting servers from someone else. It's a fundamental change in how we approach technology and business.
Okay, so the difference here is it's like night and day. On-premise, that's the old way. You buy everything, you own everything, you manage everything. You have total control, sure, but you also have all the costs and all the headaches. With a cloud provider like Azure, Microsoft handles all that physical gear and you just pay for what you use.
And this right here, this is the financial game changer. Think about it like this. Instead of spending millions to build your own power plant just to turn the lights on in your house, you just pay your monthly utility bill. That's it. It completely lowers the barrier for new ideas and new companies to get started.
And then there's the speed. This is where it gets just wild. In the old world, if you needed a new server, you'd put in a request, wait for purchasing, wait for shipping, wait for setup. We're talking weeks, maybe even months. In Azure, you can have a brand new virtual server up and running in minutes. That kind of agility is just revolutionary.
All right, so how does this all work? Well, when you first step into the cloud world, you get hit with this alphabet soup of acronyms, right? IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. It looks confusing, but it's actually just a simple way of defining who's responsible for what. How much do you manage, and how much does Azure manage for you? Let's break it down. Okay, first up, at the very foundation, we have IaaS, or Infrastructure as a Service. The easiest way to think about this is like you're renting the raw hardware. Azure gives you the virtual server, the storage, the networking, but you're in charge of everything on top of it. You install the operating system, you manage the security patches, you install all your software. It gives you the most control.
Now take a step up and you get to PaaS, Platform as a Service. Here, Azure starts to do a lot more of the heavy lifting. They manage the hardware and the operating system. All you have to worry about is your application, your code, and your data. This is huge because it lets you focus on building amazing features for your users, not on tedious server maintenance.
And finally, at the very top, we have SaaS, Software as a Service. And you're already an expert in this, I guarantee it. If you've ever used Office 365, Gmail, or Salesforce, that's SaaS. You don't manage anything. You just log in and use the software. The provider handles absolutely everything behind the curtain.
This little table just pulls it all together beautifully. As you move down the list from IaaS to PaaS to SaaS, you can literally see the responsibility shifting. The blue box, what Azure manages, gets bigger, and the green box, what you manage, gets smaller. The right choice just depends on that balance you need between control and convenience. All right, enough theory, right? Let's make this real. We're going to look at two of Azure's most popular services that perfectly highlight that classic cloud trade-off we've been talking about: maximum control versus maximum convenience. So on the one hand, you've got Azure Virtual Machines. This is our IaaS heavyweight. It is, for all intents and purposes, your own server that just happens to live in Microsoft's data center. You have total granular control. On the other hand, we have Azure App Service, our PaaS champion. Here you give up some of that low-level control, but what you get back is incredible convenience. You just deploy your code and Azure handles everything else, including awesome built-in features like auto-scaling. And this is one of the coolest features you get with a PaaS service like App Service. Say goodbye to those site will be down for maintenance banners. Instead, you deploy your new version to a separate staging area. You can test it out, make sure everything is perfect, all while your users are still on the old version. Then, when you're ready, you click a button to do a VIP swap, and boom, all the traffic instantly flips over to the new version. Zero downtime. It's magic. Okay, so an application running on its own isn't much use, right? It needs a place to store data, a way to communicate with the world, and a secure way to control who gets access. So let's look at how Azure builds out this digital foundation.
Now, Azure storage is way more than just a giant hard drive in the cloud. It's actually a whole suite of different tools for different jobs. You've got blobs, which are perfect for storing huge, unstructured things like images, videos, or backouts. You have files, which works just like a traditional network drive you'd have at the office. Tables give you a super scalable, NoSQL database. And queues are like a postal service for your app, letting different parts send messages to each other reliably.
And you know, a huge thing to remember is that Azure is built for a hybrid world. It doesn't expect you to throw everything away. Virtual networks let you carve out your own private, isolated corner of the cloud. From there, you can connect it back to your office with a secure VPN, or for the absolute best performance and security, you can get a totally private, dedicated fiber line with something called ExpressRoute.
So how do you secure all this and control who gets in? Well, that is the all-important job of Azure Active Directory. This is the central command center for all your user identities. It provides single sign-in so your users can log in once to access a bunch of different apps, and it enforces critical security layers like multi-factor authentication to keep the bad guys out.
All right, so we've built our foundation. We've got our apps, our data, our networking, and our security. Now for the really, really fun part. Once all your stuff is in Azure, you can start doing some truly amazing things with it, like predicting the future with machine learning.
You know, machine learning sounds complicated, but it really comes down to two main flavors. First, you have supervised learning. This is where you're the teacher. You give the model a bunch of data where you already know the right answer, like 1,000 emails you've already marked as spam or not spam. Then there's unsupervised learning. Here, you're more like a detective. You just give the model a pile of data and tell it, go find interesting patterns. It might come back and show you 3 distinct customer groups you never even knew existed.
And what's incredible is that Azure ML Studio makes this whole process so much more accessible. It's a visual drag-and-drop tool. You literally drag in your data, drag in an algorithm to train it, use it to make some predictions, check how well it did, and if you like the results, you can publish it as a live web service that any other application can use with just a couple of clicks.
So what does this look like in the real world? Well, imagine taking publicly available census data, things like age, education level, hours worked, and feeding it into a model. You could then train that model to get really good at predicting whether a person's income is likely to be above or below $50,000. That's the power here, turning raw data into actual predictive insight.
And there you have it. We've gone from the very simple why of cloud computing all the way through the building blocks and up to creating a model that can predict outcomes from data. Azure gives you this incredible toolbox, this massive set of digital Legos. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build?